Hello, everyone, and welcome back to this week's episode of Kind of a Bitch. I have been thinking about my day yesterday, and I'm going to share a little bit of it with you because it has brought up some conversations slash discussions about a different story, which will be the main topic of this episode today. I will start off by saying this is going to be about the panic spirals, the anxiety spirals. And if you are a high performing, high achiever, eldest daughter, people pleaser, whatever, any of those archetypes of people that really want to do a good job or have really high expectations of themselves, you know what I'm talking about. So we're going to talk about that. But first things first, guys, I had such a weird experience yesterday and the day before. And really, this started on Wednesday. As you know, if you are tuning into the podcast for the first time, I am in real estate. I'm a practicing real estate broker here in the Seattle area. I've grown a business over the last 6 years or so from zero to what I have now. And I am, for the most part, very comfortable and happy with who I am as a real estate agent. And there are still certain things that really throw me for a loop. And one of those things is number one, the fear that my client is unhappy and or that they will be unhappy with me, right? So whether that is unhappy with the situation that they are in or that they are unhappy with me directly. And so I'm giving you that setup so that you kind of understand where this generalized fear, I'm aware of where it's coming from. So I had a client closing, and listen, part of the job of being a real estate agent is to be able to handle problems on behalf of your client, right? We are here to problem solve. We are here to make things that are hard go away. In a perfect world, that's what we're here for. We can't always do that because not everything is actually in our power. As much as I would like to deny that, I would love everything to be in my control, but unfortunately, it is not. And 2 days ago, when I showed up at a listing, not of mine, a home that my clients were closing on shortly, and they were driving from out of state to be there. I showed up and the sellers were still there. And again, I do not know the communication that was happening between the listing agent and his clients. I truly have no clue, but the sellers were there. It is not normal that the sellers are present for any of the buyers diligence periods, right? Whether that's the initial showing, the inspection, any of that kind of stuff. And this happened to be the final walkthrough. And when I got there, the interaction that I had with the seller illuminated the fact that the seller had decided that the sellers decided they were not going to leave until the day after closing. And that, well, it threw me. It threw me for a loop. And if you know me, I'm great at handling problems. I'm also very good at putting on a calm and confident face. And that is definitely what was happening here. But inside was a raging tornado of anxiety and concern. So, of course, I call the listing agent. I explain the situation. I'm very calm and very, hey, so looks like we have a problem. Your clients seem to be under the understanding that they do not have to leave the home. And well, that's not going to work because my clients are going to be here at 8 p.m. tonight and they need a place to sleep. So, what are we doing? Right. And long story short, we did get the problem handled, but I wasn't 100% sure until the end of the day yesterday, which was when my clients were arriving, whether or not the problem was really going to be handled. So I spent the whole day in an anxiety spiral, imagining the worst, thinking to myself, oh my gosh, we are going to show up. The sellers are still going to be there. I'm going to bring my husband because if I'm perfectly honest, the seller spoke to me in a way that I think would have been different if I was a man. So I brought my husband and I was like, if we're going to have like an all out brawl on the lawn, what am I what am I supposed to do? What if they leave all their stuff? What if they break windows, right? I was in a panic. I was imagining the worst. And it is also, long story short, we got there. Everything was totally fine. The sellers left the home absolutely perfect. And my clients were really happy with their move in. Everything went well. Nothing went wrong, you guys. Let me be so clear. Everything actually turned out perfectly. And instead of just trusting the process and or trusting that I would handle the problem should it arise, instead, I spent 36 hours panicking and imagining every single possible bad solution that there could be and sending myself further down a rabbit hole. So today, we are going to talk about fear. We're going to talk about panic, and we're going to talk about what happens when our brains go into overdrive. Now, the reason I've been thinking about this is because a couple of weeks ago, yes, this happens in my everyday life. I am constantly wondering, what is it going to be today that throws me into a spiral? And I've been very observant of my own internal behavior recently. I'm just watching how me, myself, and I respond to things internally. Externally, I've got that on lock. I've got a acting degree from one of the top colleges in the country. I know I can handle myself there, but inside, it's a different story. We're going to rewind. The year was 2014, and I had just returned from my Broadway tour contract. I had just finished a hopeful pre-Broadway run with, all these old Broadway stars, and was kind of deciding what I wanted next in my life. I had auditioned, I had booked two different gigs. One of them was another Broadway national tour, and the other one was a gig with a cruise line. Now, I had both of those kind of floating around in my brain. Before I had gotten those gigs, I decided I was going to run a marathon. A half marathon, not a marathon. Whoa, I haven't gone that far, team. Don't panic just yet. It was a half marathon. I had started running because I was grieving. I had gone through a breakup, and I was truly just not the best version of myself. And so I had started running as a way to cope and a way to measure my progress kind of with more tangible data. Okay. So I was running, I was training for a half marathon. I had been doing that for months and months and months. The day or two before the marathon, I went over to my girlfriend's house, and we decided we were going to partake in a little green fun, if you will, a little something, something to take the edge off. Just had a little fun with our Mary Jane journey, if you will. For those of you who don't know, that was a part of my college life, and back then, however, if you remember, it was not legal. So don't come for me, anyone who's listening, that if you don't approve, I'm so sorry. I can't be perfect. I don't know what to tell you. I decided to go over to my girlfriend's. We had a little fun, and we ordered a bunch of Chinese food, and we carbo loaded. Okay. That's what we were calling it. We carbo loaded because I had a half marathon to run. The next day or the day after, I honestly can't remember if it was the very next day or the day after, I ran the marathon, and I reached my goals. I was very happy with my results. I was super pumped, and I went on with my day. It would have been 3 to 4 days, I don't know, maybe even a week as far as that. After that half marathon, I got an email from the cruise ship, the cruise company that I had gotten the job. This was my offer, and I accepted it. Okay. Now, I had that job on lock. I was super pumped. A few days after that, I got an email with all of the things that I was going to need to do to get ready to prepare for this contract. It was only 3 weeks away or so, because that is the life of a performer. You have to pack up and leave your life and get ready to go in mere weeks. It's crazy. And one of the details on there was, you will need to go take a drug test. You're going to need to take a drug test. And I looked at that and went, fuck, shit. What am I supposed to do now? What am I supposed to do? Because my goody two shoes self decided a week ago that I was going to have a little bit of fun with a substance that would definitely come up on that drug test, even though I hadn't partaken in any of that fun for months and months and months. It was like one fun time over the course of, I don't know, like a 6-month period. So I, being me, panicked. 100% panicked, threw me into a spiral. I'm looking immediately at, okay, what are the rules? I have to get this done within the next 2 weeks. And of course, I start to think to myself, I just ruined my whole career. I just ruined my entire career. I'm never going to get another job again. It's going to come up on that drug test. I am going to be so screwed. All of the money that I thought I was going to make, this was the most money I was ever going to make, I thought, at that point in my performing career. And I just threw it out the window because I decided to have a fun night and order some Chinese food with my girlfriend. I was in an absolute panic. So, of course, what did I do? I immediately go down the rabbit hole. I start sifting through how long does this stay in your system? What's the half-life? Why is it more or less than really hard drugs? I still will not understand. What's the probability that it's going to come up? What are the ways that you can treat it? What are the ways that you can try and get it out of your system? I am down that rabbit hole like you have never been down a rabbit hole before. So the solution that I came to as I was in this shaking, crying, panicking spiral was, well, number one, I'm going to flood my body with water, as much water and hydration as humanly possible. So again, I can't tell you. Here I am, 24 years old. I didn't know what I was doing. I drank so much water and not basically, and traded out almost all food for watermelon for the course of like a week and a half, almost 2 weeks of just water and watermelon. I ate so much watermelon. I think I was peeing like every half an hour. It was insane. On top of that, I started obsessively working out, like however much I could do to sweat and sweat and sweat because it stays in your, I don't know, in like your muscle or fat tissue. I don't know. I couldn't remember it now. I was also going down the rabbit hole of like, what supplements could I be taking? Should I be doing niacin flushes? Like I was putting myself through the ringer and I was in just a constant state of panic. As it gets closer to the time that I needed to do my drug test, I booked this thing out, as far as I could go. I I'm in such I feel nauseous. My whole body is constantly sweating. I'm shaking all day. Like I couldn't the amount of stress that I was under, that I was putting myself under was at an all-time high. And I said to myself, you know what I'm going to do? I'm just going to go. I'm going to go to the doctor. I'm going to go right to the doctor and I'm going to ask him. I'm going to figure out what the deal is. So I go to the place that I'm going to get the test at, is at some, MD center that you go to, just an emergency or urgent care kind of a thing in the Upper West Side. And so I go there and I walk in and they bring me into the back room and I'm like, okay, here's the deal. The nurse is there. She's like, yes, how can I help you today? And I'm like, okay, here's the deal. Listen, first thing I need to ask you, there's HIPAA law, right? Like I immediately was like, HIPAA law, you can't tell anyone, right? Like anything I tell you in this session, you can't say anything, right? And she's like, that is right. And I'm like, okay, so I'm going to go ahead and explain this thing to you. I am a really good person. I don't do things that are wrong. I've never been to jail. I've never even gotten a speeding ticket. Like I was, in it. And I'm like, I might have, maybe I got this job. It's my dream job. It's everything I could ever want to do. I'm going to travel the world. Oh my God, I'm single. I just want to go out and live my life. And I might potentially have smoked a little bit of marijuana 2 weeks ago. Like and I haven't smoked anything. I haven't even taken a gummy. I haven't even been around it in at least 6 months. I'm pouring my heart out to this poor nurse. And I'm like, I swear I'm a good person. Also, you can't tell anyone, right? And she is listening to my story just kind of wide-eyed. And I'm like, what is the potential that this is going to come up on my drug test? Like what? And she just, very calmly is like, I have no clue. I don't know. It could, it might not. These things are, it's hard to tell, especially if you if you don't have any other drugs in your, she was just so nice. And I just like, again, HIPAA law lady, please don't share this with a doctor. So I leave, I go home, I continue my my all watermelon diet, and I return again 2 days later. I didn't miss a call to my mom where I did tell her everything and was again in a full blown panic and just like, and what am I gonna do? My whole life is on the line. Like I've just ruined my life. Like your daughter, your perfect A++ student, magna cum laude, whatever. Like I am going to lose a job because of the drug test. I couldn't get over it. And I go to the doctor that day, shaking, crying, sweating, throwing up, the whole 9 yards. And I take the test and I'm sitting in that room waiting, just sweating bullets. The doctor comes in and the nurse who I had spoken to 2 days prior comes in behind him. And as he's shuffling papers, she very discreetly just gives me a little thumbs up. For those of you who aren't watching on YouTube, just a little like thumbs up. Oh my God, the relief, the absolute relief. And then I screamed, cried with so much relief. And of course, I mean, not in the room because I didn't need the doctor to know that I was, that I had done something naughty, because how dare. And I go on my merry way. I get on my cruise contract. I proceed to travel the world and meet my husband, and the rest is history. So truly, it did turn out to be a life-changing contract, but I didn't know that at the time. Well, I thought I knew it, but I didn't really get it. And to this day, I still think about that story. It had come up in like a 2-week period a few weeks ago. The story had come up a number of times. And I just think to myself, wow, Most likely, everything that I was doing, now that I'm a little more level-headed, was not really changing what was happening with the drugs inside of my body. Okay, most likely that was not affected by it. And instead of just enjoying the last couple of weeks and knowing that, hey, whatever's going to happen is going to happen, that's what it is. I spent 2 weeks, my last couple of weeks in New York, at an absolute all-time high, panic level, 1,000 alarm bells. Couldn't enjoy myself, couldn't eat, couldn't do anything but focus on this, and all for nothing because everything turned out fine anyway. So I guess all I'm saying to you here is, if you were listening to this, and hopefully you think this is as funny as I am or as I do, and perhaps you're thinking of some of your own situations where this has also happened to you. But the thing about this is that I really had convinced myself that this mistake had ruined my life. And the huge relief there is realizing that the fear of this potential loss was massively larger than the actual reality. So upon reflecting on that story, and as well as, this one from a couple of days ago, anxiety, it's not about logic. It's about the stakes, like how high the stakes are. And I have found that the anxiety is a lot higher when we deeply care about the situation, the opportunity, the person, so much so that our brains go into overdrive. They wage war on yourself and on your body, trying to protect that thing that you care so deeply about. So these spirals that I'm sharing with you, it wasn't about the drug or the paycheck or whatever. It was about the fear of losing a relationship with a client. It was about the fear of losing this dream job that I was hopeful would change my whole life, which funnily enough, in retrospect, it kind of did, because that's where I met my husband. So let's talk about the science, because it wouldn't be one of these podcasts if I wasn't doing a little bit of research. Spirals, let's talk about these. I know, at least for me, I love understanding why things happen, because I think it allows me to understand the root, so that well, actually, I'll touch on this. It gives me a small feeling of control, and perhaps it will do that for you as well. So, number one, when you feel a threat, it does not matter if it is a tiger or a wolf that you meet along your hike, or if it's a surprise drug test. Your amygdala, which is this little like almond shape piece of your brain, it's an alarm system in your brain. It lights up. And when the amygdala is in charge, it completely hijacks the rest of your brain. Like, logic pretty much goes right out the window, and survival mode takes over. And that's why a lot of times you cannot think clearly when you are in the alarm bells mode. Logic just goes offline and survival mode comes online. Once the amygdala flips that switch, your body 100% floods with cortisol and adrenaline. And those two things, those are the flight or fight, sometimes freeze chemicals. They speed up your heart rate. They make you laser focus on the danger. They make you drop like other things. So something that would sometimes happen with me is I would get an upset stomach and would need to go to the bathroom right before I auditioned. And again, that is a physiological reaction to that fight or flight. I am in fear. I am in danger. I feel this in my heart. I can feel myself starting to sweat. And I need to uh, basically release everything in my body so that I can move faster, so I can get away faster. Right. And so these chemicals, they make you laser focus on the danger, and they push you into action, which again explains why I thought that working out obsessively and eating tons of watermelon was the only reasonable response, which I know now in retrospect, it probably wasn't, though I can't say that I would do anything different if the same thing happened now. You know what I'm saying? But again, the hormones, they narrow your focus into that danger, which is why you often cannot stop obsessing about the thing that is giving you that anxiety, that fear when it's happening. And again, like, even if those actions that they're pushing you to take, like the overworking out or whatever, or me, panicking the other day about whether or not everything was going to go okay with these sellers, even if those actions don't actually change the outcome, you are convinced that by doing them, you have a certain level of control. Which brings me to this safety behavior. So psychologists will call this type of control, this illusion of control is what I really should call it. They call it safety behavior. And it's the things that we do to feel in control when we are anxious, even if they don't affect the actual outcome, if they don't change the risk. So the things that we're doing, the eating all the watermelon, it's classic safety behavior. It gave me a feeling of agency and control in a very uncomfortable situation. Okay, it doesn't necessarily fix the problem, but it does trick us into thinking we're doing something that then calms that panic, at least temporarily. And I see this with my friends, with my family, where when something is amiss, whether it is something really big like a sickness in the family, or if it is something really small like um like the babysitter canceled and now everyone's in overdrive trying to help the family member find a babysitter, right? It's like no one can focus on anything but that. And even if it means reaching out to someone you haven't spoken to in 100 years to see if they can help, like it is just kind of crazy. And now that I'm thinking about this, I'm recalling a few episodes ago, you may have remembered this as well. I shared how I had a client who wanted to drive in their car, which is again totally fine, but it threw off my day and it ended up being an uncomfortable situation for me because there were multiple people in the car. I then didn't have a level of control and there was also quite a bit of smoking happening, which again for me it's just not something that I do. No judgment if you do. It's just not I don't want to be hotboxed in a car for a habit that I do not partake in. So I remember thinking to myself, I can't, there's nothing else I can do. I'm stuck here. I have no other options. And lovingly, my therapist then asked me the next week, she was like, what's the problem with maybe you taking a different car? And I said to her completely honestly, Marilyn, I've never thought about that. I didn't even think about that potential opportunity at all because I was so laser focused on the problem, which was that I didn't have enough room in my car to take everyone. You know what I'm saying? We get stuck. It's the illusion of control. Anxiety changes how we interpret risk. It's a distortion of like the probability that something will happen. So it makes something that is a small chance, a 1% chance, feel like a 99% chance. It's that my rational brain, again, my rational brain knew that it wasn't as if I partook in that particular habit of a little weed moment very often, if at all, in the recent months. But my anxious brain convinced me that the drug test, it would definitely come up and it would ruin my whole life, right? It's also this idea of putting the one opportunity. We only have one option. This one thing is going to change my whole life. And because of this tiny mistake, I will have quote unquote ruined my life. But here is the hopeful part. Every time you experience a spiral and we come back on the other side, our brains learn. Every time we go through something big like that and we learn that, oh, it actually wasn't that bad. Every time that my phone rings and it's from a client who, you know, I don't know, has potentially had more issues than other clients, and they call to simply give me an update or ask me what my address is or whatever, it helps my brain learn that there's not a problem around every corner. Every time that I do have something come up that is a surprise that maybe I couldn't prep for, but then I handle it beautifully, or a negotiation happens that I didn't expect and I'm able to work my way through it, it teaches me, it teaches my brain that I can indeed handle those situations. And every time your brain learns, that is neuroplasticity. It's the brain's ability to rewire itself. And again, that's kind of hard to do because I think I just read something almost this week, it might have been last week, that by the age of 35, a lot of those synapses, those habits, the ways that we think, they are pretty solidified in your brain. So you have to do some work to change, to rewire. And surviving spirals builds evidence for yourself that you can handle and you can persevere in the name of discomfort or unexpected situations, which will slowly over time, especially if you can notice it and if you can catch it, it reduces the power of future spirals. So the science tells us why these spirals happen, but the real power, like I mentioned, is in catching them as they're happening, like before you end up going down the rabbit hole. And listen, it's not always possible. Sometimes you're going to have to catch yourself when you're mid rabbit hole, but I'm telling you, it will get easier over time. For me, in that last story with the watermelon, I was down. I was down deep in the hole. I was not going to catch myself. But since then, I told you I have been thinking, I've been observing myself in my own body and in my own mind recently. I have started to notice the signals before the spiral. And that is the first step, like recognizing your early warning signs. For some people, it's the racing mind. Like you can't shut off your brain at night. And for other people, it's the tightness in your throat or in your chest. It's the sweating. It's the bodily responses. Or maybe it's the impulse to jump in and do something, whether that's to do a ton of research, like go down a rabbit hole of trying to find the solution to fix the problem. Maybe it's immediately calling someone for help, right? Or to like clean up immediately or to fix, right? Just there's so many things that people start to jump into. And my personal red flag is when I start coming up with these elaborate plans that sound logical in the moment, but they might not make any sense to anybody else, right? Like when I'm thinking about this issue with these sellers the other day, I think to myself of all the things I was imagining me needing to do to make everything right without knowing whether my clients would actually be upset or not, right? I was just so in fear of them potentially not having a good experience, even when none of that was in my control. And actually, none of it was my responsibility, if we're honest. But you know what? A girl can try to help out. So when I start jumping into, okay, what about this? And then we'll have to plan. And then I'll go ahead and I'll call a junk removal company. And then what if we have to go to court, right? I mean, I go down deep. And so I know when I start doing that, I catch myself or I notice that it's happening and I know that I'm not actually solving the problem. I'm simply starting to spiral. So here's what the research says can help us. Number one, name it. Literally say to yourself, I'm in a spiral right now, or I'm starting to spiral right now. This simple addition to the spiral of it all can move activity back towards the prefrontal cortex, which is the more like rational and logical part of your brain. The second bit is grounding your body. Because again, anxiety is very physical. So you'll start to feel it in your body, which will then, at least for me, it bounces back and forth. I feel it. And then I think to myself, I'm anxious. And then I talk about being anxious in my own head. And then I feel it more in my body. It just ping pongs back and forth. So whether that is a bit of breath work, going and taking a walk, moving that energy out of your body, or potentially stomping your feet on the ground, doing some push ups, right? All of this can help to bring your nervous system back down to a more grounded level. And a lot of these feelings, they take about 90 seconds to get through your system. The first ones, the big rush, right? You might still feel the after effects, but if you can get through that first 90 seconds and really try to ground yourself there, we will be a lot better off, I can tell you. The third one is delay action. So tell yourself, I do not need to solve this right now. It interrupts the urgency loop, which I am definitely at fault for bringing into my awareness constantly. This has to be taken care of right now. And it often doesn't. It really doesn't. Even if it's still a problem, like in the next hour, the next day, most likely, if you give it a second, say, I don't need to solve this right now, you can revisit it with a much clearer head and a more wide angle lens, which is, I think, what we need. Because, like I mentioned in the beginning, when we get into that panic mode, we laser focus on the problem and we don't necessarily see all the solutions there could potentially be. Number four is reach out. As I experienced, I didn't tell anyone. I didn't tell anyone about this drug test. I was panicking alone. Spirals grow in isolation. They grow in isolation. So sharing your fear with someone else, someone who you trust, someone who is maybe a little bit calmer and isn't going to go, oh my God, what do you mean? And do that back to you. You got to have those people in your life. I'm telling you, that will cut it down to size. That will bring you back to a more manageable, a more reasonable, and a more realistic headspace so that you can actually handle what is really on the table. not the fear, not the story that you've made up about the problem. So the point here is not to never spiral, because we are all going to spiral. And when I meet people who don't do this, truly, wow, I'm shocked and amazed. I wish we could all be that level-headed. But I think if you're listening to this podcast, you are also someone who will spiral. But the point is to build enough awareness so you can see when you're starting to slip, when you're starting to move towards that spiral, you can catch it. And hopefully, if you can catch it and you practice a couple of these routines, right? You'll have a few ropes to help pull yourself back out before you get too deep. Like I said, spirals, in my opinion, are universal. And I personally think that everybody has an I thought I ruined my whole life moment. And if you do, I would love if you sent that my way, because I love hearing people's stories of when they truly thought they'd ruin their lives and it's actually something so silly. Please send those to me. Give me a good laugh, as I hope I've done for you here today. And like I said, the power is not in never spiraling. It's in learning to recognize, to pause, to take that breath, and to remember that the spiral itself is not permanent. You've been here before, you've handled it before. As you have many times, all of us can fall back on that data to know, hey, I've survived, I've made it through this before, I know how to handle this. And looking back, if you can, as I do now, even if it is a little bit funny, it shows you how much you care and how much certain things really matter to you. And I really just think it's, when we care as humans, it is a very natural thing to panic if something really matters to you. Resilience is built in the Spirals team. So if you are with me on this, just know every day we are building the resilience, but of course you have to catch it. You have to be aware of it in order to build that resilience. Otherwise, you are just floating around in your own head, and awareness, knowledge is power, right? Awareness is power. So we do have to start catching this stuff. But that resilience really is built by coming through those spirals, not by completely avoiding them. So, if you have a story that you would like to share, something potentially as silly as mine, or something that maybe is a little bit bigger, please send them my way. I love that stuff. I will not share it unless you ask me to. Perhaps I should do a series about that, or other people's "did I mess it all up" story. I don't know. We'll see. I get inspired by a lot of random things. So send me your stories. If there is something in this episode that resonates with you, something that stands out, something that maybe you'd like me to talk about more or to explore more in this space, please send me a DM, send me an email. You can find all of that in the show notes. And other than that, find me on socials. Write a review if you have an opportunity to do so. It changes how the podcast is found and how it's rated on podcasting platforms. So if you have the time to do that, I would love you forever. And other than that, I will talk to you next time. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, wherever and whenever you are listening. And I will chat with you next week. Bye.